where is your zone 2? Do the threshold calculations work? Do you need to do some other kind of fancy test or do something in a laboratory, or does it even really matter? I'm going to try to answer some of those questions for you and show you how to find it a little bit better or another way than just the simple calculations on Training Peaks or another application. So I'm Coach EK, been a professional coach now for 25 years, and gonna do this quick video for you guys. A lot of hype on Zone 2. Yes, it's super important. Can't just do hard stuff all the time. And a lot of good benefits from adding volume, whether it's short or long, and making sure we're at the appropriate kind of intensity. So this is typically referred to as Zone 2 training if you're using like a 5 or 6 zone model. Basically what we're talking about is the intensity kind of below LT1. Above LT1, the lactate starts to build up a little bit, and then LT2 is kind of what we call our lactate threshold or threshold. So when it comes to Zone 2, most people will do some kind of field test and use someone's calculation, whether it's Coggins or Joe Friel's, or I have my own that I've made up, which are all very similar. And basically you do some kind of threshold test, you extrapolate what your lactate threshold is, you get a little bit of a range, and then we extrapolate all the other zones out from that. This is a great benchmark. It's still a great way to start. You hear a lot of these, is threshold dead? Does it really matter? There's videos from other coaches and professional cyclists talking about there's other things that are more important, and that is very, very true. However, this lactate threshold is still a good benchmark to start from and extrapolate those zones out correctly. If you do a test correctly, that's another video, and it's still a great place to start. However, that Zone 2 mark is pretty far away from threshold. So as you get farther away from any kind of point, your margin for error gets a little bit bigger. So when it comes to Zone 2 training and making sure that you're going easy enough, another way to think about it is we call this conversation pace. And being able to speak in complete sentences is a very old but a good measure to use. The other thing, and where that comes from, is your breathing rate. So really pay attention to your breathing. And if you're really thinking about it, what you'll notice is at some point, as your intensity goes up, you'll notice your breathing shift. You have to take deeper breaths and more frequently. That is right where LT1 is. That is right at the top end of your Zone 2. Now, you can simply observe this on a run or a bike ride or a hike, trail run, hike, whatever it is, whatever your sport. However, in any activity, in any modality, it's very easy to kind of spike your effort and spike that power output. The breathing then shifts after the heart rate responds a little bit later. And if you then observe your pace or your heart rate or power output, all of the above, you might have a very high number, fast pace, fast power output, much, much higher than that top of Zone 2. So what we want to do is, if you're doing this and you're trying to find this, is one, you can simply observe it on any kind of ride or run. The better way to do it is have a very slow progression, a very gradual and slow progression. After a pretty substantial warm-up, 20, 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your sport and your proficiency in that sport, and have this very slow ramp. And what that will do is it will let you not spike the power way too high or the pace way too fast before you realize where that breathing is. And it will probably be close to the Zone 2 calculation. However, I'll use myself as an example. With both running and cycling, that point is a little bit higher than where the calculation says. So I'm about 5 to 7 beats, heart rate beats, higher than what the top of my zone 2 says for most calculations from a threshold standpoint. So you can do this on a gradual trail where you gradually increase your effort as you go, gradually, slowly bring up the power output on the bike or the pace running on a flat road, etc. And then always take into account your environmental conditions. If it's 95 degrees out and you're stressed out and you're fatigued from other training, then you're going to have a bit of a different response. So, but that breathing rate is really important, and it doesn't take a lot. It's not you don't have to do some crazy thing to notice this. And so if you pay attention to it, you'll notice this breathing shift, and that's kind of the top of zone 2. Now, I will point out that there's nothing magical about staying above or below this line. Maybe fat adaptation. So if you're really concerned about training your body to burn more fat for energy during exercise, during that sport, then yes, we want to stay below that LT1. We want to minimize the amount of lactate that's in the body. The other important thing is simply with doing your zone 2 work is going a little bit harder generally doesn't do us much good. We build up a lot more fatigue for a very small amount of additional adaptation, and it's simply not worth it, especially if you're training a lot. So the more you're training, the more structured, the harder your training is, the more kind of hard intervals you're doing, the more you kind of want to err on the easier side with this zone 2 work. But if that isn't you, I have some athletes I work with who are they train very low volume, or if you're kind of coaching your kid, high school, college, even younger, grade school, and they're doing sports, and you want them to be a good endurance athlete in the future, I wouldn't worry so much about this line and being overly strict with it, okay? Almost all of the time when I prescribe zone 2 work to my athletes, we do it on feel, and I have them kind of check their heart rate from time being to make sure that they're not going too hard or too easy. They're kind of in that zone. But the zone 2 work, I wanted to share this as another way to kind of find where that top end of zone 2 line is. But it is good to kind of realize that most of the time the zone 2 work shouldn't be the stressful, strict training that you need to do. It should very simply just be going out for a run, going out for a bike ride, trail run, hike, and having a good time, not killing yourself, getting some good, solid repetitions in with technique in your modality. That's always the kind of the most important thing, the best way to do this kind of training. So I hope that helps. Hope you guys find it helpful. If there's any other topics you want to hear me talk about, let me know and we'll get to it.